All right, to get started, the first colors that you're gonna need are black, red, white, and also burnt umber. And we're gonna mix all these together and get a good range of colors to use within the eye. And depending on what color the eye is that you want to paint, you can change up the burnt umber, but I'm only gonna be focusing on brown eyes right now. So if you're painting blue eyes, you would use blue. If you're painting like green eyes, then you use green. Just depending on whatever you want to use, then you can substitute out the burnt umber. But for all eyes, you're gonna use the black, the white, and also the red. So to get started, we need to have a good base that we paint on top of. So when I'm creating a base, I use this one chemical. It's called Gamsol. And what this is just paint thinner. You're gonna mix a little bit of it on your palette along with your paint. And you really don't need that much, but I'm going to create a nice little gray that I'll mix in with my Gamsol. So on my palette, I'm gonna take a little bit of white and a little bit of my black. Right here, you only need like a small touch of black because black can go a really long way. And you're gonna grab your palette knife. You're gonna grab your palette knife, you're gonna mix these two. So I'm gonna grab a large portion of white, move it to the middle of my palette and take a little bit of my black here. And we'll get a nice gray to create our underpainting with. And I want it to be a little bit lighter than this. You don't want your underpainting to be too dark or else it's gonna stand out when you're trying to layer on top of the underpainting, and you don't want that. You don't want your underpainting to show when you create your finished product. Because the underpainting is not necessarily a perfect layer. It's very geometric and is messy, so you don't want your messy layers to show when you're trying to create something really, really good. So that is the reason why we make it as thin as possible and as light as possible, because it's just the framework that we are using. So now we have a nice grade that we can use for this underpainting. And with the Gamsol, I just grab a little bit of it with my brush. I'm gonna dip it right here. I'm just gonna grab a little bit with my brush and then bring it onto my palette right here. You want like an even amount about. Okay, and once you mix the Gamsol in, then you're gonna have a nice liquidy consistency, because oil paint straight out the tube is very thick and it's hard to work with. So when you thin it out and then you paint over top of it, it becomes very, very smooth. All right. And for the underpainting, we're just gonna focus on the structure of the eye. We're not doing all the detailing, like mapping out where the highlights are or where the shadows will go, because that will be for a later stage. But for the eye that I'm looking at right now, the shape of it is like this. So I'm just gonna create a very geometric pattern right here. And then we'll sharpen it up as we go. So just gonna round out the edges right here. And also, if you're interested, then in my description, I have a 7-step guide that you can follow, and you'll get free value as well. It's my emailing list. You just type in your email there, you get the 7-step guide for painting portraits, and you can follow it very easily. So I definitely recommend checking that out. But if you're not, then you can just keep on watching the YouTube videos, that's fine. But for the eye, you want to just map out where the separation between the eye bulb is and the skin will be. All right. And And now that we have the shape of the skin that surrounds the eye, we're going to focus on the pupil now. So you're just going to create a circle, and in human eyes, it's not like a perfect circle. Some people it's like a little bit longer than a circle, sort of like an oval type shape, but not full oval. But you could just follow what I'm doing right here. This person that I'm copying, they don't really have a super symmetrical pupil, so I'm just going to make that show in this underpainting. Okay, and that is the underpainting. We're just getting a rough outline of where the features will go. And for this next layer, blocking out, that's when the actual shape starts coming in, then the colors actually start making their place. And after blocking out, you just get to the sharpening stage. That's really all you have to do. So blocking out, actually first is underpainting, then blocking out, then sharpening, and you should be good. There's no much more steps that you have to follow. And if you just follow these 3 steps, the underpainting doesn't have to be perfect. You just gotta focus on blocking out and sharpening, and you will be able to paint basically anything. But I'm gonna paint another angle as well, so you guys can have some more references to work with.
Okay, for this eyeball, it's sort of like on a sideways plane, and for sideways plane, you really want to focus on the angles that go over here for the eye, and it's like a sharper line. It's not necessarily a oval shape. Now it's sort of like a triangle with rounded edges. So you want to map that out, and for the eyeball, it's in the corner, so we're not going to get the full eyeball, the pupil side. You're just going to get a sort of semicircle, because only a small portion of the full pupil will really be showing.
And I'm gonna go back to the original eye. I'm gonna map out where the light reflection is showing, just so I get a rough image of how the final will look. So for my reference, the light is reflecting on this corner of his eye, and the light will be reflecting anywhere. It can be reflecting at the top of the eye, it could be reflecting at the bottom of the eye, or on the side. You just want to really map out where the light goes. All right, now that we're done blocking out, we can start getting to the whites of the eye first, and then we'll go in with the color. So I'm gonna grab some of my white over here and put it in the middle of my palette. Just like that. And I'm gonna grab a small amount of my gray that I used earlier, just a very small amount, because we don't really need that much. And this will be just to darken up the whites, because there's shadows reflecting on the whites of the eyeball, and we want that to show when we are painting. We want all of the shadows to show, we want all of the lights to show as well. So that is pretty good color. I'm gonna grab a little bit more white so that it's a little bit brighter, because I want it to be a little bit brighter. Over there is a little bit too dark. All right. I'm pretty happy with this white right here. For blocking out, I'm just gonna put whites surrounding this area. Just gonna fill it all out with this white. I'm gonna get this full surrounding area covered with this white color. right. And now surrounding that white area is a little bit darker, so I'm gonna grab a small amount of this gray that I made earlier. Just a small, tiny amount, you don't need a lot. And you're gonna just add some right where the skin is about to fold onto the eyeball. You add a very small amount, you don't want that much. And you want to apply this in the corner as well. Just a small, tiny amount. And you're gonna blend this all together so that it has a nice, smooth look to it. Alright, so now you're gonna blend it all. So it should have a nice seamless transition. You don't want anything to be too rough. You don't want any edges to be too sharp either, because we are going for a nice smooth texture. Just like that. Right, now we have a full white area here. And I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that gray again, because on the left side of the eyeball is a little bit darker than the right side. The right side has a little bit more white on it, so grab that small amount. And I'm gonna blend it all together. Want to blend it all together so everything looks nice. Okay, now after you do that, you want to grab your red, because we're gonna start adding some pink for this side on the left of the eye. Just a small amount of red. You don't need that much red either. We're using mostly white with all of this, so I'm gonna grab some more white out of my tube. Grab some more white. And add just a tiny little bit of red. And when you mix it together, you should get a nice pink color. Yeah, pink color just like this. It's not too bright either. You want it to be very subtle. And we're gonna add a small amount of this pink that we have to the corner of the eye, right here. Add a small amount. Gonna add it right here. Okay, and we do have like a little bit of veins popping out on the eyes, so we're going to just grab the existing pink that was already here, just drag it slowly onto the eye. You want to make sure that you don't really spread too much, because it's very small amount of pink that is actually showing on the eye for the veins. And have a little bit of it down here as well. There we have that pink showing. So now we have a little bit of veins on the eye. And there's some on this right side as well. So we're just gonna grab that existing paint again and apply it to the right side of the eye. And after we added that pink, we are going to start going with the pupil now. And for the pupil, you're gonna just go in straight with your burnt umber. Always want to clean off your brush as well each time that you're changing colors. You don't want to mix too much colors together, or else it's gonna show when you're painting, and you don't want that. So for this area over here, we're just gonna cover all with our burnt umber. And we're gonna circle around that area that we let out for the light reflection, because it's hard to layer white on top of darker colors such as this brown that we're using. And we're just gonna fill everything out nicely now. Just get a nice smooth transition between everything. Alright, and now that you have that, you want to clean off your brush, and we're gonna soften up the edges that surround this pupil. Just gonna go very lightly with your brush. Very, very lightly, like you're just brushing over top of it with very little pressure, because we want to soften up these edges, and we don't want it to be too sharp, because on a human eye, the edges of the pupil aren't very sharp. It's sort of a soft edge that blends into the whites of the eye. Yeah, just like that. All right, so after you've done that, now it's time to grab some of your black. We already have some black on the palette here, so we're going to use that. And we're going to just grab a small amount. You don't need too much. Grab a small amount on your brush like that, and you're going to apply it to the center of your eye. And you're just going to blend it. All right, so that's already enough. And I'm going to clean off my brush here so that I can create a nice smooth transition between the brown and the black. And we're gonna also use that on the edges of our pupil, because on the edges of the pupil, it's a little bit darker than when it's surrounding it. So just gonna grab some that's existing in the center and lightly brush it on the corners. And when you do this, it's gonna have a much more realistic look to it. And with this, now we're gonna just brush outwards to get a nice texture. Brush outwards. I'm gonna grab a little bit more black now, just so I can really focus on the center of the eye, making it a little bit darker than everything else. All right, and from there you should be good. Okay, and now we start to add some of our details with the whites. So first of all, we're gonna grab some of the white that was on our palette. Make sure that you clean off your brush pretty well. And we're gonna start adding where light is reflecting. So underneath the eye right here, there is some light reflection, so we're gonna add some white so that that shows. I'm also gonna blend some white over here on the right side of the eye. And you're gonna use the white over here just so that you have some light reflection on the eye. And we're going to use this same white on this area right here where there's the light reflection. Just going to fill out this area with white. And I'm going to grab just a small amount of this gray that I made because there are some gray areas in this light reflection. I'm gonna grab a little bit of this gray again and just make it border this right here. And blend everything together so it's smooth. And there is a little bit of light reflection right here where the pink is touching the eye. So we're gonna add that. There's very, very small amounts of it. See where else light is reflecting on the eye. I'm just gonna match that. Okay, just like that. And we're gonna just add any more details that we see. Like there's a little bit of light reflection coming off of the eye. So I'm gonna grab some of this white that I made before and add small, tiny amounts. That's over here. There's some small areas that have it right here. And some small areas that have it right here. I'm just gonna blend those in so that is seamless. All right, and that is one eye finished. And you just want to copy that for the second eyeball down here. It's pretty much the same concept. So I already have all of my colors that I need down. So I'm just gonna copy that again down here. So you're gonna use your white mixed with black, this light gray, and cover out this area underneath. All right, and over here at this angle, the right side of the face is just this pink. There's no white at all. And you're just gonna copy that right here. See where on my subject this pink is showing. And I'm going to add my burnt umber now for the pupil. Right here, just like this. And I'm gonna grab some of my black and put it just in the center of the eye right here. And I'm gonna soften up those edges just like I did for the last one. So soften it up, and you're just gonna brush very, very lightly around it. You don't wanna put too much pressure on it because it will blend if you do that, and you don't want it to blend. You just wanna soften it up. And now I'm gonna add some of my grays for these areas where the shadows are showing over top of the eye and in the corners. So areas like this right here. Got a little bit of brown on there, but we're just gonna clean that up. Just a little bit of shadowing underneath of the eye right here. And surrounding the eyeball. Just gonna use a very, very small amount. And we're gonna blend this all together so it's smooth. Make sure that there's no rough edges left. On my way to clean up this. I clean off the brush. You always want to clean up your brush, and you got to stay consistent if you want to get good at painting, because the more you do it, the better you will get. And every single time that you paint, you should always set a goal for yourself, saying that you want to make the next painting even better than the last one, and that's how you get good. You can't stay at the same base level and not challenge yourself, because if you don't challenge yourself, you're gonna stay in the same place. It applies to really everything that you put your mind to. You gotta go in with full force, knowing that you can beat yourself the last time that you did. And that is something that I did with art. Every single time that I got in my sketchbook, I told myself that this is gonna be even better than what I made last time. And I continued that for years. And compared to 2 years ago, sometimes I look at my photos and I just look at how far I've gotten, and that's all a result of me just having that mindset for years. And everything just compounded. I became even faster, I became even better, and I didn't even know that I would be able to create the things that I'm making right now, but it happened. And I'm gonna continue doing this because the mindset that you have, it shouldn't stop after you create a really nice painting. The mindset should carry over, and you should be thinking that I'm gonna make the next painting that I make even bigger. I'm gonna make it even better. Because do you think that the best artists in the world just stay at base level and thinking that they can't get any better? They always think that they can advance, and that is what creates such beautiful pictures. That's what creates such strong-minded people, because they always advance, they always look forward, they never look backwards. They only look at their achievements as stepping stones. They don't look at it as places that they've gone and they're not going to reach them again. They use it to propel them, because even when I got into my first art show, that was something that I could have used as, oh, I'm only going to get to this one show and I'm not going to challenge myself again. No, in my head, I told myself, I'm going to use this and I'm going to connect with more people so I can go to more places like this. So that is exactly what I did. I used it as a stepping stone. So right here, I'm gonna blend this all together. And I'm also gonna add some of my black surrounding this brown area of the eye, because you want it all to have shadows. You don't want it just to be pure brown. Just add a small amount of black surrounding the pupil, and I'm gonna blend it together as well. On the right side of the eye, the left side of the eye, the bottom and the top, all around it. And I'm gonna grab some of my burnt umber, put it just in the center right here so that you get a nice mix between the colors. All right, now that we have that, we're gonna grab some of our pink, because the pink is gonna carry over to this bottom side of the eye. just like that. And now that we have that pink underneath the eye, I'm gonna just clean up this edge because it's not really that clean right now. We want it to be as clean as possible. Alright. Alright, and now that you have that down, now it's time to add some light reflections. And I'm just gonna use a very, very small amount over here. And in this area right here, I'm just gonna darken up this pink just a tiny bit by adding a little bit of this red. And I'm gonna blend it all together. Just add a very small amount. And you blend it together just like that. You're gonna add your pink right here just so that it's a nice smooth blend, because it's a little bit darker as you get closer to the pupil of the eye. And for light reflection, you're gonna grab a small amount of this white and just add small little dots right there, just like that. And there's some at the bottom right here. Alright, and there's a light reflection on this side right here, just like that. I'm gonna add that in as well. And there is some at the top of the eye. Some light reflection right there in the eye. Some light reflection right here. There's an area of light reflection that carries over into the pupil, so I'm just going to trace that out. And areas that brown gets in, I'm just going to clean it up just a tiny little bit so that it doesn't carry over into our highlight. Alright, and that is good right there. And there are some areas of light reflection underneath the eye, so you want to really get those punched in. Alright, and now I'm going to grab just a little bit of my pink that I made earlier, and I'm going to use this for the veins. I'm going to create like tiny little squiggly lines, and I'm just lightly brushing over because the veins really don't have too much like strength to them. It's just a very subtle thing that you see, and you can just carry over some of the paint that you used earlier as well. You don't have to use fresh paint out of your palette. And I'm just dragging it along so that it can be seen. Let's create small squiggly lines everywhere. And there are some veins at the bottom. You don't want to just make it come out of the corner. Some of them come out of the bottom of the eye, and there are some that surround the eye right here. Some that go right here. So we're just gonna get all those areas down. And now I'm going to use some of the white that I used earlier. Again, I'm going to just add a small amount of that into my eye so that there's a little bit of light on it. I'm just going to clean up these areas that need to be fixed. Just minor touch-ups, nothing serious. Alright, and I'm just going to use some brown. Alright, now that is how you paint eyes. I want to thank you all for watching so much again, and I want to invite you to check out that 7-step guide on how to paint portraits in the description. It's also going to make you join my emailing list, so I'm also going to give you some free value on there. So I'll see you all in the next video.